Michelle?
Daniel,
OG
Rose, and
Rose?
today we're going to be talking about the Numenon and the closet. And Reed recently had a birthday, and the years just fly very quickly.
Yes, he's 2 now.
His too. That's pretty
It's
wild.
wild. I feel like he was just born.
It's just interesting, I guess, with a birthday and work, you're thinking about, how time moves very quickly. Could you get more time so that you can make more of your day, do all these different things, get things done. And it's just interesting, I guess, as you get older, it's almost like time speeds up. It just feels like things get faster.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like just yesterday we got married.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Now I have three kids, and they're getting older themselves. So it's wild.
No, it is just funny, and you're reflecting on that, and you have 20 minutes to get to work, so
Yes.
You're looking in the closet, and I
Yes,
couldn't
you were
find
looking for your
anything.
coat.
I couldn't
Yeah.
find. I was looking for that coat, and I guess it was interesting
Yeah.
because you couldn't find it, and I guess Pei recently did a really good talk on
Yes.
Borges, Library of Babel,
Yeah.
the infinite books, and I actually think it's like the best presentation I've heard on that.
Yeah. Borges has a lot of great stories, and Pei's videos excellent.
Yeah, well,
excellent.
Attention was excellent, and
Yes.
and I guess I was thinking Borges, and Borges has a story called the Alpha, Aleph, and it's kind of this point in Jewish, and I think the Kabbalah Tree of Life. It's this point where kind of all space and time you can all come together. There's this story where this guy he goes through all of these accounts of people looking for the Alpha, and he like falls down a staircase in a basement somewhere, and he looks below the staircase, and lo and behold, there's the Alpha. And he sees every flower that's ever existed opening. He sees the edges of the universe. He sees every event that has ever occurred, every single person. He's kind of like a glimpse into the mind of God, almost, kind of the Alpha. So he just falls into the staircase. And I guess I couldn't find my coat, and I thought about that, Pei and the story, and I looked down, and there was the Numenon. There was a Numenon, so I kind of reached down and picked up the line, and then I saw my coat, and I found it, and it was just really, really, really great to be able to find the coat.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of funny because you just kind of never expect to really reach the Numenon.
No, and I mean you never reach it. You just kind of non-touch it, and
Yeah.
so but I mean at first when you put your hand around the Numenon without making contact with it, you can't really think of it. You don't know what to do with it. It's hard to think about. But we were, I guess, outside, and I forgot I was holding it, and and there were these deer that were trying to eat
Yes.
the garden, because we
Yes.
live on a farm, you have deer, and we hadn't put the fence up or different things like that. And, you shout at the deer and they don't move. And then so you just kind of impulsively throw something at it. And I wasn't thinking about it. And lo and behold, I nommed through the Numenon, and the deer were gone. And
Right. Well, they were in all space time.
well, I mean, they're basically seraphim, and so no animals were harmed in this.
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
actually the deer were happy because it wasn't like they couldn't think about the tomatoes, and we didn't see the deer, and so I felt like everyone won. And so the deer became seraphim, so they're sitting up there with Beatrix, and so I thought that really worked out. And I guess that's when you're like, man. And, well, it was nice because then you could put it around the garden. You didn't have to worry about the animals getting to it. And it wasn't ugly. A lot of fences you put up, and they're horrible to look at. But you don't even see this one. So I thought that was a really nice use.
I mean, we don't see the vegetables, the tomatoes either.
But, I mean, you have limitless food.
Yeah.
Just knowing that you have more food than you could ever eat, I think, is really comforting.
Yeah, no, it's funny. There's just so many interesting, uses that have come up now for the Numenon.
Well, it's a great personal organizer, I think.
Right.
It helps you know what you should think about and what you shouldn't think about, what you should focus on and what you shouldn't focus on.
Right. Well, just like when I came up the stairs the other day to
Yeah,
your
I didn't
office.
see you, actually.
Right,
And
yeah.
that's where you have these W8, W9, it fell on the desk.
Non-dropped the Numenon on your desk.
And then I didn't see the taxes.
Yeah, well, that's to say, just the taxes
it was amazing. Well, they were done. They were done away with. And I here with just 14 days until they're due, you don't think you're going to be able to get it done. You don't think you're going to be able to finish it. And it was the first time I hadn't thought about taxes in a long time, and I just was really nice to have. And also, I didn't feel guilty for not thinking about taxes either. It was just really clarity of mind, which I thought was nice. And, I actually think that's probably what, Jerome Powell and the Fed is using, because that it kind of explains where all the spending power of the dollar is going. So I thought that was, kind of clarified that. But no, I mean, as a personal organizer, as helping you focus on what you should focus on, what you shouldn't focus on, how to kind of get, well, I mean, there are certain things that you can just kind of not worry about anymore. And that goes a long way.
Oh yeah, because I mean, once it's there, and it's not something that you can even really think about.
Well, it's there and it's not there.
It's there and it's not there. Exactly.
And so you don't feel bad about it. I mean, if it was clearly there, you would know you need to do something about it. But if it wasn't there and just wasn't there, well, then you wouldn't think about it. So by kind of having that double space, it kind of takes off an existential burden. You don't feel bad about using it because you're not using it. You're non-using it. And I think that really helps you, because it's that Philip Reef, escaping, Eric Fromm, Escape from Freedom, balance of givens and releases. So I think the Numenon really exists as a personal organizer, where it's not absolving you of personal responsibility, because there's nothing there to absolve you of anything. So you don't feel bad about using it. You don't feel like, oh, I should be able to get my life together on my own without the Numenon, because nothing's helping you. Nothing's not helping you. And I think that really, really goes a long way as a personal organizer. I mean, the kids seem to like it.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, it's funny. Kids are kind of inherently numinal.
They're not really bound by space or time.
No, they're not. They're in all of the space and time, and suddenly they're a turtle.
Well, that's a funny thing. I mean, a kid will just, Reed will be a kitten. Not acting like a kitten. He will be a kitten. He's not bound by his conditionality in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just, it's like they're able to do that already.
Well, I guess it's funny because for them, for us, finding non-finding the Numenon was a really big deal, but for them, it's like...
What's the big deal, guys? We do this all the time.
Yeah, no, it's just funny how, as you grow up,
Yeah.
you become more bound by space and time.
Absolutely.
And I think, too, what's been interesting for me is, Deleuze will talk about lines of flight and avoiding capture, and how, kind of the schizophrenia is a way of thinking that cannot be easily captured, and different things like that. And, what I guess I just find so interesting is that this noumenal way that children live, where they can just be a kitten, is how you avoid capture. But it wasn't, because they embody the noumenon, but it wasn't until you found the noumenon as an adult, found, not found, it's hard to think about. It's that you really didn't know how to avoid being controlled. I mean, like, for example, like you're talking about the kids are not really bound by space and time. I mean, if there's spaghetti sliding down the wall, the kids don't even notice. It's like it doesn't even bother them if there's spaghetti going down the wall. Their spatial condition is of no concern to them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it could be up there for a long time. I mean, it could be up there forever, and it's not going to bother them.
No, I mean, you can walk into a room and there are kittens and turtles everywhere. And they would just sit and look at you. And if you... Well, that just goes to show you how bound as an adult you are to... If you see your living room full of puppies and mud and pigs... there's something wrong.
Well, right, we get so stuck in the phenomenon, we just lose sight of
what matters.
Yeah, and we lose sight of the fact that really it's like the noumenon is always kind of actually accessible to us. It's not reachable and accessible at the same time.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like we learned from Hegel, right? I mean, you can't perceive your limit. And that is your limit, your inability to perceive your limit, and therefore you experience your limits limitlessly. So the funny thing is, you don't think about your noumenon because you don't experience your noumenon, which is precisely then why you go to treat your phenomenon as if that's all there is, as if it is limitless. But really, your phenomenon is limited, and that revelation lets you know that there's a noumenon you can cross,
right?
Where your kids are already waiting for you. They're sitting there with the kittens. They're sitting there with the pigs in the mud, and they're like, "Where you been?" And it's just funny because, where have you been? You just it doesn't really capture it.
No, absolutely.
Well, and I think that also, again, if you can be someone that doesn't mind, or doesn't even mind spaghetti on your wall, then how is the government going to capture you? Like, you are not going to be captured.
You are not
because
able
they can't. Well, for Deleuze, you're captured if you're intelligible. if they can make sense of you. But if you're someone who doesn't mind spaghetti being on walls and animals running in your room, then the government can't make sense of you.
No.
And the algorithms can't make sense of
Yep.
you. And if that's the case, you're not going to be captured. I mean,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
not going to be controlled. I mean, there's a reason why, like in Kafka, you know, I had that talk with Kay, and we were saying, like, in Kafka kind of shows ways the psyche captures itself, that the state captures it. You know, there's a reason that Joseph K is not a kid.
Yeah.
Because if you are numinal, like a child, you're just not going to end up in the trial. You're not going to end up in the castle. You're not going to be captured in a Deleuzian sense.
Oh no, you're gonna be the castle.
Yeah, you're going to own it, and not own it because you're going
Yes.
to transcend categories of neoliberalism.
Absolutely, and that's the beauty of children.
Well,
And-
it's sublime.
yeah, of course, exactly, and that's the beauty of the access we have in understanding the presence of the noumenon.
Well, I mean,
It's actually it's here.
well, the beautiful thing is it's always here, but it doesn't get in the way. You know, they talk about like good actors. They don't like control the scene. They're kind of subtle. They're kind of there, but they're not there. And that's not like what a lot of the great actors do. They don't
Yep.
control the scene, and that's
Yep.
the noumenon is like a gentleman kind of thing. You know,
Absolutely.
it's like a gentleman. But I think it's also been kind of neat. Yeah, I will say though, I do think with the noumenon and kids, you know, you do have to set some parameters, which isn't hard because it is a parameter, I think.
Yeah.
And you know, because Grace,
Yeah, she was
she was eating
ice cream.
Yeah, on the
she got ice cream and went on the other side of the noumenon,
noumenon,
and she ate.
We didn't know where she was.
And she had and she would, and the reason why she went there was so she could eat all of the ice cream in all
Every
of space
possible
time.
ice cream of
Exactly.
every possible
She loves
space
ice
and
cream.
dimension. And I mean,
Yes.
who wouldn't want to eat every possible? Well, the thing is, you wouldn't get full either because you were not bound by space, so you
Right.
could just keep eating
Just
it.
eating,
and
eating.
you know, she was kind of there for a long time, but also just for a moment.
Yeah.
And what was tricky is once, I mean, we the only reason we found out is we opened the fridge and the ice cream was gone. There'd been a change in the phenomenon, so that meant that something had to have changed that we weren't perceiving.
Right.
And that's when we non-reached down and removed it from in front of the booth, and there was Grace. And
And she was
yeah, she just
smiling
She
ear
was
to
smiling.
ear.
She was smiling. Well, and it's difficult, right? Because I mean, across the noumenon, there's no free will. There's not the same passage of time. So it's not really like they did
Or
something
morality.
wrong. There's no more. Well, you can't have more. If you don't have
Yeah.
free will, you can't have morality. So it's very difficult because, like, did Grace do something wrong? Does he not do something wrong?
Right. It
And
makes
as a parent,
Yeah.
you just don't want to be in those situations.
I mean, so you know, you gotta be smart about it.
Well, I mean, if you don't let them use the noumenon at all, you're just kind of siloing. You know, you're kind of, well, you're letting the noumenon win. Actually, you know, you're letting them be bound by phenomenon, which is what the noumenon would have. So you don't want to do
Yeah,
that. You
yeah.
don't want to kind of silo them and kind of all that different stuff. You know, you want them to control the silo, not be siloed. So yeah, I mean, you got to kind of find those boundaries, not find those boundaries, and you know, just find the right way to do it. But no, I mean, it's tricky because once they eat all that ice cream on the other side of the noumenon before dinner, you as a parent, you kind of like, did they do something wrong? Did they not do something wrong? And you start critiquing your judgment, and once you do that, you kind of go crazy. And so you don't want to be in that situation because you really can't. If you can't maintain your judgment, I think it's difficult as a parent to know what to do.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and that's so true, and that's why, you know, you kind of have to be aware of that. I think with the noumenon and its use, and I think that one of the things though that has been beneficial with the noumenon is that it really, you know, especially for Haven.
Right.
Haven's already in all space and time at the same time.
Right.
So it's perfect for him because when he gets across the noumenon, he gets to do one of his favorite things, which
Right.
is coding.
Yeah. That's
And
right.
you know, we've talked a lot about the quantum coding and
Yeah,
everything that's coming
computing,
up, and
yeah.
how they're talking about how coding's going to be irrelevant because computers will do it all. Well, see, the thing is that Haven just takes his little computer,
Right.
takes it over the noumenon, and he's beyond the quantum programming.
Yeah.
He's in other dimensions and he's in what, like the fifth
12. I mean, computers are still in space and time.
12 point whatever, the
Yeah.
web 12.0
I think
or whatever.
pi, 3.1496,
Yeah, 3.14. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like he's on that. He's getting the cutting edge on that.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it kind of gives him a head. I think it gives him he kind of gets a leg up.
Well, it's
on
basically,
that.
I mean, it's like cutting edge. It's like the cutting
with the
clay
Numenon.
bottle.
Yeah,
You know, it's like the
exactly.
cutting clay bottle.
So I think that's been. I just want to mention that's been a really great,
Well, I mean, as a parent, if your kid
use of the
comes to
Numenon.
love something, but
Yeah.
you're like, oh, it's gonna be automated. You're like, oh, but you know, it teaches logic, it teaches thinking,
Yeah.
it makes them excited. They end up learning how to type and they learn letters and all that, and
Right.
and that all makes it important to do. But just knowing that they're now able to code beyond space and time, I think really
it's
is
perfect.
securing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good.
Yeah.
I think it's really good.
and every time, and then Haven comes back with all these,
Yeah, I mean, I think what is
advancements,
Web 9.9 or something.
Yeah,
I mean, so
yeah.
that's been good.
been good, yeah.
And then Reed can just go hang out with Dr. Manhattan for a few non-hours. And I mean, Reed usually comes back with like dot on his head, and you just rub it off, and he just giggles. And yeah, and a few things I would say also. The world, there's you turn on the news, there's always something crazy going on, government, COVID. Every tribalism, all the different things that are going on. It's just kind of, you want to really focus on what matters. Your slice of the world, right? You really want to kind of pay attention to that, but it's really difficult because you have all these things going on. And, where you can take the Numenon to the bottom of the driveway, drop it off, and then you're present. I mean, you're very, very present.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. That's just one of the most tremendous, non-use of the Numenon, where you basically just
you create your personal space.
You create there's you just kind of boop, non-time.
Well, you don't worry about it. You don't think about it.
It's a non-time.
You stop
everything
thinking
on
about
this
it.
side is in. You just kind of focus on what's here.
Well, I mean, everyone talks about the importance of, self-care, taking care of yourself, being present.
Yeah.
To think about what you can make a difference about. What can you actually change? What can you actually do something about?
Right.
But how do you figure out what that is? I mean, but once you drop the Numenon off at the end of your road, well, you now know what you should think about and what you can't think about.
Absolutely.
And so you don't feel bad about it anymore.
Absolutely. Total stress relief.
Well, I mean, it's very difficult in the modern world to kind of think about your immediate circle. And if it's the only circle, I mean, it's not hard to think about.
Well, and I mean, that's why we kind of just really want people to know about the Numenon. We want people to know that they should go and open up their closet.
Well, I mean, if you open your closet and you can't find your coat, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to drop something off at the Goodwill. It doesn't mean that you need to, give a few more hand-me-downs to your cousin. I mean, if you can't find what you're looking for, look down. You might find something that really can kind of change nothing. And now, if you look down your closet, well, if you open your closet and you can find your coat, you can find your pants or whatever. I mean, if you're missing socks, I would check your dryer.
Yeah.
And if you do both of those things, and you've got all your clothes, you got everything you need, you can find everything you want. If you walk into your living room and it's perfectly together. Well, now I will say this. I mean, the kids pulled that one on us. So if you go in your living room and it's clean, that might mean there's a Numenon somewhere.
Absolutely. I mean, it's absolutely.
If you're if you can't see your sink, if your sink is
suddenly you can't see your sink. I mean, you just need to be aware that it could be
in a lot of places. It's like that Borges story.
Yeah.
I mean, so
and that's we wanted people to know that there's a way.
Well, and if they if at the end of the day
And there's not a way.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a way and there's not a way. But if you in the description, if you call the A Priori synthetic, there will be opportunities by which to all we can do is offer a guide.
A guide.
Because your Numenon is your Numenon, and that you have to find in the world. But we like to offer. If you don't see it, that's precisely why it's there.
Yep.
And the guide is going to kind of help you understand why something you don't see is the most present thing of all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and I mean, just like we said, there's just been some tremendous advantages with the Numenon.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because you just never really can think about it, but
there
it is.
It's hard to think about all the ways it makes a difference.
It is. It's hard to think. It's hard to think about really anything about it, actually.
Well, you can't put it into words.
No.
It's timeless. It's time. I mean, I think it would help with the meaning crisis. Because so many people, their heads, they just don't know what to think about and what they shouldn't think about, and they can't control your thoughts. Well, if you had a Numenon, you'd have a personal organizer.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, too, like, just the way that, you happen to find it and really not find it in the closet there was like, it's
Well, we let it out of the closet.
Well, right. It's symbolic that it's in the
Yeah,
closet.
that's right.
That the Numenon is in the closet.
Well, I mean, it's the doors of perception, right? If you cleanse it, William Blake, Huxley, and different things like, but you just open them,
open the doors.
and then if you don't see anything, you found it. And that, I think, really is quite helpful. Well, again, I think for me, it's been empowering.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, as you're a kid, as you're an adult, you're always losing your keys. You're always losing your wallet. You can't find what you need. You're trying to get out the door. Where did the flashlight go? Now, instead of assuming that I'm just getting old and can't remember anything, now there's a moment I go, wait a minute, Dan.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that helps you from
Yeah.
beating yourself up. It makes a
Yeah.
big difference.
Right, exactly. And so kind of with the meaning crisis, you kind of get to this place where like, well, wait, I just feel like there's no meaning. Well,
I mean, if there's no meaning, where exactly?
If there it is. That's
The very
there's
fact
the
that there's
Numenon.
no meaning means it's probably here.
Yeah.
But you never think that. Yeah, and I mean, if you check out the Aparasynthetic in the description, you give it a call, and you check it out. I mean, you can just figure out how you should put your life together. How you should organize yourself, and again, it will just help you get at the things that matter. So for more by O.G. Rose, please see our Amazon page. You can find the Numenon under the Conflict of Mind. Find, non-find, whatever you prefer. And again, it is non-priceable. You just fill in whatever number you think is best, and realize that it could always be a different number.
Yes.
You're not bound, and the Numenon is not nothing.
Yes.
And
The only real concern that I have is that, say if I get really, 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 really annoying or something,